What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Stand Phillies Sports History for July 9th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast. It is Tuesday, so it's time for a little positivity / motivation. And today, the quote is, "Never be a prisoner to your past. It was just a life lesson, not a life sentence." And I think that is just one of those things that anybody can learn from, because we all make mistakes. And a lot of times, some of them are minor, some of them are major, but people tend to hang on to those mistakes and just beat themselves up over them. And it was a mistake. You move on, you learn from it, you become better because of it. And that, to me, is the main goal. And too often, as I said, we just hang on to those things and let those mistakes define us as who we are, and they're not. So if you're out there struggling with something that maybe it was a mistake, whether it was at work, in a relationship, or whatever, know that it's okay. Learn from it, move on, because that does not define who you are as a person. And to kind of almost like a bonus to that, not necessarily a bonus, but an addendum, sometimes others will just hang on to those mistakes as well, no matter how much you try to move on. And as tough as it is sometimes, I think that's when you need to start evaluating relationships and maybe cut people out of your life. I mean, when I was young, I made plenty of mistakes, and I've had to cut people out because they would not let them go. Define me based on the mistakes that I've made, and you have to move on. And sometimes it is tough, but just know that if you're out there struggling with something like that, don't be a prisoner to your past. It was just a life lesson, not a life sentence. Learn from it, though. I think that's the key piece of there. Certainly learn from it. Don't make the same mistakes. Be a better person because of it. But don't just wallow in it, and don't be, as the quote says, a prisoner to what happened in your past. And don't let others define you by past mistakes, especially if you're working to move past them and you're getting better, you're becoming a better person, and you've learned from those mistakes. So that is today's Tuesday motivation. Hopefully that will help you as you go about your weeks. But never be a prisoner to your past. It was just a life lesson, not a life sentence. All right, big day for the Phillies today. No official word on whether Kyle Schwarber or Bryce Harper will be back. Schwarber likely will be back. It does appear trending that Bryce might be back. And I know there's a lot of talk about that. And listen, if he's 100%, he's 100%. I think if there's any doubt that even if he's 99%, I say you hold him out another day or two or three, whatever it might take. But certainly welcome back to Kyle Schwarber. Much needed. Hopefully that'll help set people in their right spots in the lineup and allow the Phillies to have a decent series against the Dodgers. Bryce being back would be even better. I feel if he's 100%, he'll be back. And I just hope that he doesn't try to push it and rush it back, because it is the Dodgers and a good series. But I think they have until early this afternoon to make those decisions. So we will keep an eye on that, but Schwarber likely will be back. There's a good possibility Harper will be back, which is good. Much needed for the Phillies coming into this series against Ohtani and the Dodgers. And this is a big series. I mean, no matter how you look at it, yes, it's July. Yes, it's not really going to mean much heading into the All-Star break. But from a confidence level, I think if we can go out and have a good showing against the Dodgers, it will go a long way in easing and calming everybody's fears with sort of the recent struggles with Schwarber and Harper being out. Zach Wheeler takes the mound tonight. Good person to have. He's been pretty decent in his last few starts, so hopefully that momentum can continue. And then Christopher Sanchez and Aaron Nola go. So you have three of your best pitchers ready to go against the Dodgers in this pivotal mid-July. I guess is this mid-July, early July? Either way, the Dodgers are coming to town. Hopefully reinforcements are on the way. And we got a 6-game homestand here. I want 4 out of 6. I would love for 2 of them to be against the Dodgers. I would love for 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, 2 out of 3 from the A's, if not more. but I think we can do it. So Zach Wheeler tonight, I think it's like a 6:20, 6:40 game tonight. So looking forward to the Phillies being back in action. Had a nice day off, well rejuvenated, well rested. Got a good night's sleep last night. I'm ready. I'm well rested, recovering from the weekend. So let's do it. Been telling you about Philly Goat. I'm wearing the Schmitties on my feet right now. They have the John Kruk is my spirit animal shirt, where 10% of those sales will benefit the Battle Brothers Foundation, which does amazing things for our veterans. But go check them out. And if you are a new listener, go check out the selection they have. You won't be disappointed. But go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. Helps the podcast out. Helps you out. And they have a ton of stuff. So you can, if you buy enough, I've done this a couple times. If you buy enough, you get something for free. So free is always good. But go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. All right, Paul George is in town. Got a tour of the facilities. Signed his contract. And on his podcast yesterday, he was talking about the whole process and his free agent process. Not the process, but his free agent process. And I feel as though we're going to get a good version of Paul George, because he felt very disrespected by the Clippers. He was very clear he didn't want to leave California. That's where he's from. That's where his family is, and wanted to kind of stay. And the negotiation process, they were extremely disrespectful to him, not really offering to him anything fair. He was willing to stay for less money. He just wanted the extra year. He had no intentions of leaving, didn't want to get a max contract from them and hamstrung the team, and wanted to stay, but they were disrespectful for him. So once he decided it was time to move on, he was all about the Sixers, and the presentation they had was great, bringing Dr. J out. And one of the things that Dr. J said, which I love, and it's well documented, the struggles that Dr. J had when he got to the NBA Finals. He said, I got there, lost, got back, lost, got back again, and lost. And then we went out and got help. That was Moses Malone, and they won. And he said, quote, P, you're the missing piece. And I really, truly think that. I think as long as, and I feel you could say this any sport, but it's more fitting for the Sixers, as long as they stay healthy, they're going to be right there in the mix. So good job for the recruitment team for the Sixers and getting Dr. J out there. And one of the things Paul George talked about was wanting to play for Nick Nurse. He talked about that game this year where the refs were just terrible, and he and Kelly Oubre went after the referees. You might remember that's when Oubre was like, you're a bitch, your mama's a bitch, your grandmama's a bitch. But he said he liked that fire out of Nick Nurse. He said he showed a lot of emotion, and that was important to him because he felt like it showed that he cares about the team and he's very invested, which I do agree. I think it was a different type of, he shows a different type of emotion than what Doc Rivers does. The everlasting Doc Rivers dumbfounded face. But Nick Nurse is a fiery guy, and he's a good coach, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to do with all of these pieces. And I think still, and I've said this before, and a lot of people are making a big deal about Paul George's contract, but that's just the landscape of the NBA right now. I mean, sure, you're giving the guy a max deal. Typically, if you give a guy a max deal, they're like, oh, you're going to be the star, the number one guy. Paul George is not coming here to be the number one guy. They don't need him to be the number one guy. They don't even need him to be the number two guy. Sure, are there going to be times where he's the leading scorer? I would hope so. But for the most part, it's Joe's team, Tyrese's team. Paul George is there to open up some spacing on the floor for both of those guys, hit some spot-up jumpers, try to play some solid defense. And I think having just his threat and presence on the court is going to bode well for the Sixers. So, I mean, the money aside, the Sixers had the money. It's just the landscape of NBA contracts right now. So we'll see. He is excited to play in front of the fans. And really, if you think about it, he played in Indiana and Oklahoma City, which were they're good basketball towns, but nothing like Philly. And he played in LA for the Clippers, though. And the Clippers are like the crazy uncle or crazy little brother in LA. They don't even play in their own stadium. The fans there are a lot of times. I heard somebody say this. I think it was on 94 WIP, and the fact that a lot of Clippers fans are just Lakers fans who couldn't get tickets to see the Lakers. So I think you're going to see the energy. He's going to feed off of that energy. He's definitely excited and said you're going to get 100% max effort every night. And listen, that's all I ask for. And that's all any Philly fan asks for. Just put in the effort and everything will be fine. Kind of some down news, I guess you could say. Maybe the jerseys won't be back this year. Nothing was clear on that, but it did seem that they were thinking about it, but likely not for this year, which is disappointing. But a lot of people were torn on those jerseys. So if you want, let me know what you think about the black Sixers jerseys. 267-495-8531 will get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Text me, leave a voicemail. You can also hit me up on social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. But what are your thoughts on the black jersey? I'm a big fan of them. But a lot of people weren't. I saw a lot of people just saying they're the worst uniforms, and I don't know. But what are your thoughts on there? It might not be this year, kind of teasing it for a couple of years, similar to what the Eagles did with the Kelly Green jerseys. But hopefully they have a change of heart. And maybe if enough fans clamor for it, we can get a grassroots movement to get those black jerseys back. They did open up Summer League last night. And yes, it's Summer League. But Ricky Council Jr., or Ricky Council IV, I should say, looked very, very good. Really stepped up in the fourth quarter. The Sixers did win their game. Adem Bona was just came as advertised. The dude was. I didn't get a chance to watch it live, but he saw some highlights. He was all over the court, full effort, and it's going to be fun when he's on the court behind Joe. And Jarrett McCain had a rough night shooting from 3-point range, but he was able to do a lot of good things from 2-point land. Was same thing. Like, he reminded me a lot of Tyrese Maxey, all over the court, diving for balls, playing good defense. So if we can get that effort out of him, I think you're going to have a good balance between the vets and the young guys. So one game in, I know it's also Summer League. It's also the Salt Lake City portion of Summer League. So take it with a grain of salt, no pun intended, but I like the energy, and that's kind of what you look for. Guys that are going to give that effort even when the games don't necessarily mean nothing. So I think they're back at it tonight. So we'll kind of keep an update on those three guys, because I think those three are expected to be a part of the team. But Ricky Council, Adem Bona, and Jarrett McCain looked very, very good in their Summer League debuts. A quick Eagles housekeeping note. We are officially 2 weeks away from training camp. I cannot wait. I'm hearing a lot of reports about Jalen since the last OTA, and the mandatory minicamp has been very vocal, stepping up and filling that void that everybody wants him to be as the leader. So hopefully that just kind of rolls over. But 2 weeks away. Hard to believe we're 2 weeks away from training camp already. All right, today we're going to go back to 1996. And on this day in 1996, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game took place in Philadelphia at Veterans Stadium. It was the fourth time that Philly had hosted the All-Star Game. 1943, 52, 76. And this was the last one played at the Vet. And for those of you keeping score at home, in 2026, the All-Star Game will take place at Citizens Bank Park. But back to 1996, this All-Star Game was won by the National League 6-0. Hometown hero, I guess you could say, Mike Piazza won the MVP. He went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs, a homer, and a double. This was when he was playing for the Dodgers, so we weren't forced to root for a Met. Thank God. This was before he signed, or I forget whether he was traded or signed with the Mets. But either way, Mike Piazza from Norristown won the MVP. Ricky Bottalico was the Phillies' lone representative. Ricky Bo pitched 1 inning, gave up no runs, no hits, and did strike out 1. And this one is a personal one for me. And if you can see in the back over my left shoulder, I have an autographed Ozzie Smith poster. Huge Ozzie Smith fan. When I first started playing Little League, I was a shortstop, wanted to be like Ozzie Smith, and still to this day, whenever I play anything and I get to choose a number, I still choose number 1 for Ozzie Smith. But this was his last All-Star game, one of my childhood heroes, but had to give out a shout out to the Wizard. And then Cal Ripken Jr. was a story in this game. He broke his nose during the pregame team picture for the American League, and people were concerned that it was going to impact his consecutive games played streak. But he was able to get it all straightened out. He started in the All-Star game, and it did not impact his consecutive game streak. Kelsey Grammer sang the national anthem. Sarah McLachlan sang the Canadian national anthem. Jim Bunning, who was just elected into the Hall of Fame in 1996. Mike Schmidt, Steve Carlton, Richie Ashburn, and Robin Roberts, all of the living Phillies Hall of Famers, threw out the first pitches. And one final note, Joe Carter made his return to the vet. I believe it was for the first time since the 93 World Series, and got, rightfully so, booed out of the building. Way to go, Philly fans. But on this day in 1996, the National League beat the American League 6-0 in the All-Star game played at Veterans Stadium. Last time it was played in Philly, last time at the Vet, last time it was played on that disgusting, any type of artificial turf, and it will be coming back to Philly in 2026 at Citizens Bank Park in time for the nation's 250th anniversary, or 250th birthday, I should say. All right, time for the Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament. Today is our last day of the first round. We'll start the second round matchups tomorrow. I'll work on the schedule later today and let you know what the schedule is going to look like. Haven't decided whether I'm going to do 2 games from the same region or rotate the regions again, but I'll let you know first thing tomorrow. Yesterday's matchup in the Ben Franklin region, the Boston Strangler knocked out Fred X with 75% of the vote. And then in the Cheesesteak region, the Round Mound of Rebound did the same thing to Greasy Neal with 86% of the vote. So the Boston Strangler, Andrew Toney, Charles Barkley, the Round Mound of Rebound, completed the Sixers over the Eagles sweep yesterday. Both of them are moving on to the second round, which will get underway tomorrow. All right, in our final first round matchups, first out of the Schuylkill region, we have the number 3 seed Chooch taking on the number 14 seed, the Crazy Eights. Let's start with Chooch. Carlos Ruiz, who is one of the most beloved Phillies of all time, quite possibly the best catcher in Phillies history, signed as an amateur free agent in 1998. Became the full-time starter in 2007 and kept it until midway through the 2015 season when he started to break down somewhat. Was traded during the 2016 season, the last man standing from that 2008 World Series championship. He was the last guy to go. But all totaled, he spent 11 years in Philly, a 266 hitter, 71 homers, 401 RBI. But he came up with a few clutch hits during those postseason runs, which I think is often, we talk so much, he was the anchor for that pitching staff, and the pitchers loved him. And he was just such a good defensive catcher. But he did come up with some big clutch hits at times, specifically in the postseason. And as much as the pitching staff loved him, and I always thought Carlos was such a great defensive catcher and called a good game, never won a Gold Glove, likely due to just the competition at catcher at the time. He was an All-Star in 2012. He is a World Series champion and is tied for the Major League lead. He caught 4 no-hitters, tied with Jason Varitek. He's in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Got to meet him last year. Just a very nice guy. And the origin of his nickname, it is a derivative, I guess you could say, of a Panamanian swear word, chucha, which is slang or something for underarm odor is what I could find. But during the spring of 2004, it was a rough time for the Phillies, possibly even Chooch, and his teammates shortened that to Chooch, and the name has stuck ever since. But Chooch is our number 3 seed out of the Schuylkill region, taking on the Crazy Eights, which is Eric Lindros, Mark Recchi, and Brett Fedek. Scored 586 points in just over 3 seasons. Mark Recchi really excelled while playing on this line. He had 2 straight years over 100 points, and this was the precursor line to the Legion of Doom. This is Lindros's first few years in the NHL, and it was one of the most dominant lines of the early 90s, and its origin stems from their numbers. Lindros was 88, Recchi was 8, and Fedek was 18, hence the Crazy 8. They are our 14 seed out of the Schuylkill region. But now it's your turn. Which is the better Philly sports nickname? The number 3 seed Chooch, the number 14 seed Crazy 8. Call or text me on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531 to get your votes in. Get anything else Philly sports related off your chest. What are you thinking about Paul George, the Black Eagles or Sixers jerseys, Eagles training camp? Should the Phillies hold Bryce Harper out as a precaution, or if he's 100%, should he play? All of that is fair game. 267-495-8531. Also, don't forget to hit me up on the socials, Jimbo_Mott, Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you got to do to get that vote in. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, even if you're a podcast listener. All of that helps the channel out and helps the podcast out. And spread the word, tell your friends. But that's our Schuylkill region matchup for today. The number 3 seed Chooch taking on the 14 seed, the Crazy 8s. And then our final matchup, out of the Balboa region. This one could go either way, but I think I know which way this will go. We have the number 7 seed Gangrene taking on the number 10 seed Jellybean. And let's start with Gangrene. I think specifically this was that 91 Eagles defense, but in reality, I think you can kind of expand it a little bit to include the entire Buddy Ryan, Rich Kotite era defense. That 91 team, though, was sort of like the high point of this defense, and it was supposed to lead and be the culmination of all of those years worth of first round playoff exits and all of the good stuff. But then, if you remember, Randall Cunningham got hurt first play of the second quarter and kind of derailed that season. That Gangrene defense, though, had 5 Pro Bowlers, Eric Allen, Seth Joyner, and then amazingly, 3 of the 4 starters on the defensive line, Jerome Brown, Reggie White, and Clyde Simmons, made the Pro Bowl. Mike Pitts was an underrated guy. Mike Golick actually had a good year that year, too, in being in part of the rotation. Now, this team allowed the fewest yards total versus the rush and versus the pass. They led the league in sacks and fumble recoveries, tied for the league in takeaways, 5th in points allowed. And somehow that team who rolled out after Randall got hurt, Jim McMahon, Jeff Kemp, Brad Gable, and Pat Ryan, somehow still managed to go 10-6 and did not make the playoffs. It's amazing to think what that defense would have done had Randall not gotten hurt, and they would have been able to play slightly more relaxed and really been able to get after people. Like, there's a lot of pressure on that defense to keep the Eagles in games. Imagine if they didn't have the pressure and what they really could have done. But in my opinion, and you may disagree, and I challenge you to prove me wrong, it is the greatest defense ever in the history of the NFL. The 2002 Bucks, they were better against the pass. The 2000 Ravens were better against the run, but no team was more balanced on defense than the 91 Eagles. That is why Gangrene is our number 7 seed. And again, I challenge you. I'm open to it. Let's have a debate. Which defense in the history of the NFL is better than the 91 Eagles? There's a lot of choices out there, but for my money, it's that 91 Eagles Gangrene. They are taking on the number 10 seed Jellybean, Joe Bryant. He was drafted by the Warriors, traded to the Sixers in 1975. Spent only 4 years in Philly, primarily as a bench guy. He was on those teams, the early Dr. J teams. He was on the 76-77 Eastern Conference champion. He averaged 6 points, 3 rebounds, so he was a solid piece off the bench for those teams. He is a Philly guy, went to Bartram and then LaSalle, probably better known as Kobe's dad. And the origin of this nickname comes from when he was at Bartram, and due to the variety of moves he had as a big man, one of his teammates called him Jellybean, and it was based off of the Glenn Miller song, where the quote of the song is, "It must be jelly because jam don't shake like that." Somehow that became Jelly Bean, and Joe Bryant will forever be known as Joe Jelly Bean Bryant. But again, now it's your turn. Which is the better Philly sports nickname? Is it the number 7 seed Gangrene, the number 10 seed Jelly Bean out of the Balboa region, and then out of the Schuylkill, is it the number 3 seed Chooch or the number 14 seed the Crazy Eights? Call me on the Back to the Future text line, 267-495-8531. Text me, call me, however you got to get those votes in. Spread the word on the last day of the first round. On this day back in 1996, the National League beat the American League 6-0 in the All-Star game played at Veterans Stadium. Hometown hero Mike Piazza took home the MVP, going 2 for 3 with a double and a homer. We'll have more on the Sixers Summer League. Let's keep our positive vibes going for Bryce and Kyle tonight. Hopefully they're back in the lineup and we can come home with a win, or stay at home, I guess you could say, with a win versus the Dodgers. Looking forward to Eagles training camp in 2 weeks. Let me know your thoughts on the Sixers black jerseys. Am I crazy for liking the black jerseys? I do have an original Allen Iverson hanging in the closet behind me. Maybe I'll bust that out at some point and wear it to the pool, just for the hell of it. But remember, don't be a prisoner to your past. It was a life lesson, not a life sentence. Learn from it, move on, and just become a better person. And if people are judging you on it, it might be time to cut ties. It's going to be an extremely hot couple days here in Philly, so make sure you're hydrated. Be safe out there. Get your votes in for the nickname tournament. Go Phillies. Go to Philly Goat. Check out the shoes. It's going to be too hot to go outside and do anything, so do some shopping. Why not? Just use the promo code Jim Montgomery. All right, this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for July 9th, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Tuesday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.